So, what is etymology and why does it matter? Okay, I think it's very easy to answer the first question. Etymology is basically studying the history of words, where the words come from, and the evolution as well, right? Now, the second question is a little bit harder to answer. Why does it matter? First of all, because it's always nice to know trivia, you know? There is some kind of information we just like to have because it's interesting. For example, did you know that the word lesbian comes from the name of an island? You know, the island of Lesbos, right? Sorry, Lesbos. Lesbos is it's a Greek island, and that would be the, I don't know, more Greekized version of the pronunciation. So, Lesbos, which is an island in Greece. And why is lesbian, you know, meant, why does it mean what it means today if it's the name of an island? Was it an island full of women who liked other women? Not exactly. There was another woman, or one woman, a very important poet in the past. I think she lived in the 6th century, right? Called Sappho, right? And she was from Lesbos, and she wrote one of the, among other things, she wrote erotic poetry or love poetry, and she liked women as well as men, if I'm not wrong, I think so. And by the way, that's why we have the word safismo in Portuguese. Safismo is a very fancy way of saying lesbianism, right? Okay, so why does it matter, right? So how is that going to help me, I don't know, live better in the world? I don't know, sometimes it's just a nice bar talk, you know, can go to a person and say, you know, that word comes from that place. That's one of the reasons, right? A second reason, maybe a better one, I don't know, it depends on how much you like trivia, is it's a very nice memory helper. What do I mean by that? Let's get the etymology of the word etymology, right? So we know that etymology is composed of etmos and logia, right? Etmos has to do with real, truth, right? We're going to go back to that idea in a moment, right? But logia has to be with biology. I just gave up what I was going to say. It has to do with knowledge, right? Well, if I know that, I'm going to understand, for example, very well the word biology. What is biology? So bio has to do with life, and logia or logos has to do with the knowledge. So it's the knowledge about life. Now let's imagine I'm a person learning new words. Once I know that logia has to do with knowledge, and I come across another word, even if I don't know the entire word, I know at least it's some kind of study. Why? Because logos has to do with knowledge, right? Okay, that's a second reason. A third reason is maybe a word can tell us much more than its surface. Actually, there are some philosophers who do that, you know, they analyze a word. Some people use this as a rhetoric device, you know, I tell people where the word comes from, so I convince people that what they're doing is like this and not like that because that word comes from a certain place. I think that's very nice to use in rhetoric. But we could think about a person like Heidegger, you know, which is a German philosopher, and his idea was to, let's say, dig words until he found, you know, interesting things about them. Just to give an example, I don't think Heidegger gave that example, but it's the same method Heidegger uses, right? For example, the verb understand, you know, comes from under and stand. But at that time when the word was, I don't know, created, let's put it this way, under didn't mean like, under, but it meant in the middle. And take a look at how interesting this etymology is. Understanding something, according to this etymology, is not knowing it from outside, If you want to understand something, you have to be part of it, you have to be inside, it has to be your experience. Otherwise, you are not under, in the middle. That's what the prefix meant, right? Under, in the middle, stand. So you are standing in the middle of that particular truth. See how we can, just dig up some words and find, let's say, a deeper truth in that. So as I told you, Heidegger used to do that. Another philosopher who talked about that was Merleau-Ponty, or Merleau-Ponty, or whatever way you want to pronounce it, which was a French philosopher, and he had a very interesting idea when it comes to language. That is the idea of rock formation, sedimentation. When we talk about rocks, the idea is some kinds of rocks are formed by sedimentation. What is that? There is a layer of any kind of material, and then another layer, another layer, another layer, and another layer, and throughout, I don't know, I don't understand geology, but throughout millions, billions maybe of years, you have a stone, and that stone is formed by all of those layers. When Merleau-Ponty talked about words, and language in general, he would say that when you have a stone, which is a word or a sentence, not only we can see the surface meaning as understand today, today is like when you get it, but there are other layers of meaning that people have been using throughout the time that tell us a lot about the truth of the conception people had, right? In that sense, guys, if we go back to the etymology of the word etymology, it's the logia, the knowledge, the logos of the true meaning of words, Of course, some words are not that interesting, but I think it's worth looking at it. Now let's think about it. Let's get one question that may be, a hot debate for many people. If we should use, for example, the word lesbian, right? Take a look at it. I really don't want to enter into a political debate here. That's not my intent here, God forbid, right? Because I don't want people trying to set my house on fire or anything. But from an etymological point of view, let's talk a little bit about Sappho, right? Sappho was, as I told you, was a Greek poet, poetress if you prefer, who lived in the 6th century in Greece, and at her time she was one of the most important poets, right? She made erotic poetry about the beauty of men and women mainly, and she wrote about her erotic affections toward men and women as well. It's very striking, it's very revealing, the fact that today, if I'm not wrong, archaeology sometimes changes that, but we have one of her poems, and just some fragments. And when you say fragments, it's a pity, because it's just fragments. It's like something like, I was walking, and then him, and then like just some words, right? And on the other hand, we have several poems, entire books, let's say, from other poets from the same time, right? One theory as to say what had happened is that the Catholic monks, who remember would copy again and again and again and again documents from antiquity in their monasteries, right? Those guys, they didn't privilege, let's say, our friend Sappho, and so she was kind of forgotten and that's why we have almost nothing that has survived from her. Now think about it. The word lesbian comes to us because of lesbos, which comes to us because of Sappho, right? So if you think in that sense, I don't know, it's not that offensive, right? Because you are describing somebody whose literary works were destroyed because she was a woman and because she liked other women. So it brings at least a very interesting perspective to the discussion.